lovelies. Let's see. So, comments today are a bit more sparse than usual, because obviously the activity has been off the charts, and I've just kind of plucked comments from the various videos out without particular rhyme or reason. So, on Dungeon Drama, or if you're still insisting, Twatgate. No, it's not Twatgate. That's an A. That's an A in the middle of the word twat. So you pronounce it twat, not twat. Or twit. Come to that. Anyway, as regards that, I think, unfortunately, probably, we've had about as much vindication as we're going to get. And at least now there is something to point at whenever this kind of thing comes up again. But unfortunately, so long as the various forums and groups are not playing ball because people implicated are involved in the moderation, there's not a lot more we can really do. And unless someone can get hold of Dr. Weissman and put them in touch with the reporters that have shown some interest in this, we're unlikely to see any exposure on any of the big main news sites or anything. So I guess that's as much as we're going to get. I doubt anyone is going to apologize to me. I doubt there's going to be any sort of rapprochement. And a lot of people seem to be content to just let this lie. That includes, weirdly, people who are vindicated and exonerated by this. As I've intimated before, I think that's because there's a certain ecosystem that has grown up now where the outrage pseudo-progressives and the anti-woke people feed upon each other and both mutually benefit from a hostile environment, whether consciously or subconsciously. I think a lot of people seem to understand that, and I've never before, I think, been the first to break a story to the public, and it's been a very weird position to be in, because along with useful tips and information which people share anonymously, share it publicly. God damn it. It also attracts a lot of weirdos, hangers-on, people wanting to use my relative position to boost themselves, which is weird because, like, I'm not a big YouTuber. It's not my primary thing at all. You know, I'm getting on for, probably on course for 7,000 subs by the end of the year, if not before, but that's really small potatoes. It's not anything to lose your mind over, and yet some people seem to. So yeah, I'll probably be back on track with more usual content, though we're expecting another wizard's foot in mouth fuck up situation to occur soon, so I might report on that. But I am very aware of the temptation to chase down every little bit of drama and report on every little bit of information that comes along. My standards have slipped slightly this last week in making videos where there's not really much to make a video about, but I felt like I needed to put one out and didn't feel like doing my more normal stuff. But we should be back on track soon, which is generally me talking about more general subjects, GM advice, reviews. I've got a few books stacked up that need reviews, older game retrospectives in Know Your Role, and just whatever else takes my fancy. It was nice to do the video on the retirement issue and legacy issue this week. So thank you to all the new subs, but I'm sure you'll be chased off by my regular content when it doesn't scratch that drama itch that you maybe came here for. Also, speaking of, my second channel, Grim Streams, is almost monetizable, at least the basic level of monetization. So please do go to Grim Streams, find an actual play or something that you'd like to watch, and watch a couple of things to get me over that line, if you would be so kind. We'll also be playing Warlock on Sunday at 8 PM UK. And there's a couple of places left if people want to join, so hit me up if you're interested. I will be on T-Shirted Historian's channel for the Week in Geek tonight. Probably talking about Carl Weathers, his legacy, and a few other bits and pieces that have happened during the previous week, which, as it turns out, is quite a lot. Alright, so into your comments, or some of them. On the legacy and retirement video, TKC says, I hadn't sufficiently considered the financial insecurity of RPG content creation in retirement. It was a bit surprising when Ed Greenwood started his own YouTube channel and Patreon, so I guess I vaguely began to think about it then. I'm not saying that I think he necessarily needed to do that, but it did start to cross my mind. But I can see where this is an impossible situation for most. Yeah, I think it's a good idea for older designers to do this sort of thing. They have a built-in audience to an extent, and lots of people feel indebted to them for the things that they've created and the fun that they've allowed them to have. So I do think it's a good idea for creators to put themselves out there, at the very least on Patreon, even if you don't necessarily put anything on there, just so people can sub and say, yeah, I support you, I want you to have a few more bucks, I want you to have a bit more financial security. Me included, I'm terrible at bugging people to give me money because it feels rude. Anon says, be like Gary Gygax, write until you're dead. A lot of creative individuals are like that because I think it's a calling rather than a job. It's what we would do in retirement anyway, but having to, and the kind of pressures and lacks that come about because of that, I think that's a different matter. Jack Fetch says, I'll never forget that I backed a Kickstarter for a game to help Lee Garvin pay his medical bills, and he passed away before he could receive the help he needed. Yeah, that's a bummer. It is also the nature of Kickstarters that people have forgotten that you're not guaranteed anything. You're investing in the chance to get something, but people abuse it as a pre-order system. But yeah, that's a crushing shame. But there's not really much that can be done about that. Banjo6 says, R.I.P. Terry K. Amthor, the guy who brought Cult to the USA, co-created Rollmaster and Merp, wrote Lorien Rivendell, infamously The Court of Ardor, and created Shadow World. Also, he wrote an influential piece on being and playing gay in pen and paper RPGs in the 90s and died in his 60s. Yeah, it does seem we're destined to die in our 60s, which is distressingly close for me, especially someone with catastrophic hypertension. So, yeah, that's the other thing. You might not be able to work until you're dead. If I have a couple of strokes, which is distressingly likely, I probably won't be able to do much. So, yeah, keep that in mind. XR33TK says, isn't the solution rather simple and boils down to support the creators you like, buy their stuff, spread the word? You probably bristle at the idea, but essentially basic capitalism. I know you said philanthropy is a failure of the state, and perhaps it is, but short of digging up Marx and marching on Westminster, I see the best way forward as buying stuff we love. For what it's worth, I do buy your stuff, and Venger and plenty of other blacklisted creators. I don't buy any of it as a political statement. I do because it's quality and I like it. If we could get back to thinking like adults and buying products we like, the world would be a far better place. That's true. And we do live in the world that we live in. And you have to operate under the rules and with the tools that it provides you. And especially since so many of us are terrible at marketing, anything that people can do to boost the signal for our products, leave positive reviews, like, share, subscribe, all the stuff that YouTubers typically ask you for, but applied to all social media everywhere. That's all useful, and it is the best solution that presents itself. But I think also raising awareness of the issue, which is a loaded phrase these days, but that's useful, and it might get someone to move. I mean, my resources are limited. Otherwise, there are things that I would do. Like, I think mutual promotion is something that goes on a lot in the pseudo-progressive circles, but doesn't go on a lot outside them, which is a shame. We need to get better at that, and we need to be aware of all these things. It's hard to get someone else to move and do something that you would do yourself when you can't do it yourself. Does that make sense? I don't know. I'm rambling a bit. Doc Necrotic said, faux progressive moral panics mixed with rampant soulless markets that don't help the people. That's a lot to tackle and change. It is, but enough grains of sand and all that. This will sound weird coming from a socialist, but I do, anarchist/socialist, but I do miss the days when capitalism could be relied upon to, do things for money, and when these other motivators weren't present, because that, quality, merit, was a more reliable indicator of what would sell. And now there's all these confusions. I'm not saying that the market doesn't need interference, doesn't need control, doesn't need to be overseen, but something has gone rather wrong, I think, when they're choosing to burn piles of money for opaque reasons, so it seems. Disney, Wizards, why do they keep making all these unforced errors? Well, what's going on? Where's the mileage in it? Rob Necronomicon says, that's a righteous cause. Everyone should be at least safe and secure in their old age, financially and medically. I'll be relying on a state pension, which is fuck all, but it's better than nothing. But I'll only really retire when my arms fall off, or I can't remember where the toilet is. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I pretty much the same, and I think a lot of people are in the same sort of boat. Alright, so on the various dungeon drama videos, Lepidoptera666 says, in regard to the Janelle Jaquays mini controversy, the article may be a distraction for you, but Jaquain the dungeon means more to more people than you do. Surprise, you're not the centre of the world. Both are bad things. One is just closer to you currently. Doesn't mean you should dismiss Janelle/Paul Jaquays contributions to TSR or dungeon design, or 2011 onwards Janelle's contributions. Okay, you did that. You just went full Vengeance, Tanis and Shona at the same time. Did I, though, see the point? I don't think there's much to it, because apparently it was the Alexandrian who came up with the term Jaquain the dungeon, when it should have been Jaquazing the dungeon, I suppose, which annoyed Janelle, apparently. So having come up with the term and wanting to avoid any issues or arguments or disrespect, changed it and then got held up for all those exact same reasons. But there just doesn't seem to be much to it, especially since some of the impetus seems to have come from his publisher saying, this could be a problem because you're naming someone else. So it doesn't feel like there's really anything there other than hurt feelings and a bad decision that was made for legitimate reasons. Lepidoptera666 also says, no, I demand 10 times more videos about nothing in particular, so you become the ASMR king. I have had a lot of compliments about my voice and things lately, and I'm terrible at compliments, so please stop. And I don't do ASMR. Shut up. Subcommandante says, this highlights a big problem. These bad actors and their acolytes now control most of the main RPG forums and use them to throw shade whilst covering up their own crimes. It's just not worthwhile bothering to try and discuss anything on these forums, as some jackass mod comes in with a ban. They're an echo chamber, and the end result is the rancid pile of games that get published. Yeah, that is a big problem, and it's not just the fora. It is Facebook groups, Discord rooms. It is everything. This actually relates back to some of my experience in the Camarilla LARP Society. Gradually, over time, the people who were enthused about the stories and running good games got squeezed out by the more persistent people who liked to stir up trouble and to conspire and to metagame, because the creative, sane people didn't have the same amount of stamina as people with an axe to grind, and that's pretty much how it happens. There's nothing to stop us setting up more and different rooms and fora and so on. You just got to make them somehow hijack proof. And again, this is one of those things that I can encourage other people to do, but I have no idea and no energy to do it myself. But unfortunately, this does mean, with these discussions getting shut down on Ian World, RPGNet, along with bans on people who brought it up, there's no way to get this information into the hands of normal people, normies, disengaged people who just hear, oh, this person is bad, and then, or join a block list or whatever. There's no means by which there is a path back to redemption for anyone, because no one's ever going to see this. At least no one that needs to see it. I think that's something that people don't understand or appreciate. Sure, we all know and knew that this stuff was going on years ago. It's not news to us, but to have it there starkly with evidence that you can show people who aren't hip deep in all of this, that's a big deal. Judd Goswick says, Grim, we may need to face that the Mean Girls clique isn't going to stop being mean just because they got caught. The best we can hope for is that everyone stops listening to their fake superiority. And I don't even hold out much hope of that. There is, while none of them have disputed the facts, there's no sign that they are sorry. I have not received any apologies, no rapprochement with people who cut me off because these people were telling them to. No sudden understanding of why I might distrust every cancellation and need more than someone say so before I joined in on a cancel mob. Nothing at all. I think I have to give up thinking that there will be any sort of redemption if even this can't turn people around. I need to focus more on the people that haven't treated me like shit and have stuck around. Those are your true friends, I suppose, and the people who flee at the first sign of difficulty aren't, but it's a very bitter pill to swallow. Kenneth Seward, Mac MS, says, yeah, they're bullies. I think the best response is to laugh at them and poke fun, but that won't be effective until folks unify and stop bickering. Zach and Pundit are not helping. No, the article focusing on Zach isn't helping, but I understand why he would make a good test case. It's just not a good case to focus on if you want to get the word out And if you want to activate people to spread the word about this, but his is the most public, it is the most autistically backed up with screenshots and text and all the rest of it. But he's turned up on Jeff Ryan's blog, he's turned up on the RPG site, and he is just sabotaging both himself, as per usual, and the hopes for any of the rest of us getting any measure of redemption, or at least he's not helping. And pundits' dismissiveness and lack of understanding how important it is for reaching out to normies, and I think a little bit the fact that he profits from the culture war, I think that's not helping either. Pulp Herb says, Zach's behaviour is one reason people not normally inclined to believe accusations without lots of evidence believed Mandy's accusations about him. If I was writing this article to sabotage the findings of the research, I can't think of a smarter thing to do than to wrap the revelations in a focus on Zach. As for the Jaquays bit, 1, it wouldn't be happening if the renaming hadn't come at roughly the same time as her death. 2, it wouldn't be happening if she had not been a trans woman. 3, no one seemed to care about her legacy being unpersoned when they decided all Judges Guild material had to be suppressed when Bledsoe Jr. turned out to publish actual white supremacist writings, as opposed to I don't like you, you're a white supremacist type. The majority of her writing in the field was published, including the examples Justin Alexander originally drew upon in his blog post by them, yet the loss of that was fine in order to kick Nazis. I suspect we'll see Justin, a left-of-centre person whose Twitter often borders on culture war material, being redefined as a Nazi any day now. And I'll ask what I did a few videos back. Why should I spend more time on this hobby than playing with model trains, given the types of people I'll be associating with? Okay, there's a lot there. Yes, I think Zach's obnoxiousness is one reason people went along. I also think the fact that it was at the time of a lot of the big Me Too type stuff was a reason why people went along. I don't think it's intentional sabotage to focus on Zach. I can imagine that during the research, the fact that Zach had everything noted, screenshotted, all of it, made him a very appealing case to wrap the article around, especially if they hadn't really gone into detail on his interactions in public. As for the Jaquays thing, yeah, those points are probably all true, though you couldn't anticipate when someone was going to die, or when, in particular, the book was going to be finished and published. Yeah, you're right about Judges Guild stuff. As for playing with model trains, I would be very surprised if the culture war has infiltrated knitting. Then it has probably infiltrated model trains as well. And it's only a matter of time until someone goes, well, you know, trains were used to transport people to Auschwitz, so therefore all model trains are problematic. Plus they create harmful stereotypes about autistic people. You know, it's going to happen. Beardy Ben says, people can be marginalised and awful at the same time, which is what I said in that particular video. Exactly, people can be awful. To consider certain people an exception because they're marginalised ironically denies some part of their humanity and takes more respect away from them. Someone might stick out awkwardly in society or systems and suffer for it, but it doesn't exclude them from the human pastime of tormenting others to relieve their stress or unease. Hurt people, as they say. I think this has been taken somewhat too far when people talk about generational trauma and certain ethnic groups and so on, but it is certainly true that if you've had a hard time, you may tend to lash out or whatever, or repeat the same abuse that you've been given. I certainly would rather be angry than sad, so when I'm particularly depressed I might pick fights with people on the internet as a sort of unhealthy coping mechanism. You know, that's the thing that happens. However, while I would say, you know, even marginalized people can be awful, what happens when people take issue with me is they tend to erase my marginalized conditions in order to attack. It's a kind of dehumanization, like they don't want to admit that you're one of them, right? So they erase your marginalization and play up the ways in which you play into whatever stereotypes they think it's okay to hate. So it's a bit of a reversal, really. Captain Flint says, can't reach your read through from the link. Is there a problem on my side, or did you remove it? Okay, so there were about a dozen false strikes against various videos across both my channels. That video of the live stream where I did the read through was hit with a couple of privacy complaints. They said they'd get back to me in 48 hours. I waited like 36, and then I privated the video, and they hadn't gotten back to me until over 48 hours, at which point they said, nah, this information's out in public, so your video can't be considered to constitute a privacy violation, and it didn't reveal addresses or anything. So actually YouTube moderation worked for once, probably because I logged my complaints and protests through every possible means. So, but yeah, it came down on my side. So that video is now back up, and those links should work again. Dracopol says, you smoke? Oh my god, impressionable young grognards, would you? Say it's just the 1940s detective prop. Yeah, I don't smoke. I have fake cigarettes, which I got for cosplay a long time ago now. Which I occasionally use as a prop, and I have a pipe, even though I don't smoke, because it's got that nice sort of 1950s Hale Bob sort of thing going on with it, but I don't actually smoke. No. Sensorium19 says, I don't suspect this will be taken well, but I want to make a real politics suggestion. You or someone needs to simplify this into a list of names of people who did bad things, with the names, projects and companies that have supported them, so that pressure can effectively be applied to them. Normal people are not going to autonomously assemble themselves in the way you want them to. Human beings do not operate like that. You are taking the lead. That gives you moral authority, rightly or wrongly. Make it simple for people to do what you want. Okay. If that's what I wanted, I would agree, but that is not what I want. I don't want to sink to their level. I don't want to organize boycotts. I have a difficult and contentious relationship with organized boycotts, because I believe them to be a form of censorship, and the ACLU agrees. I also don't want anybody, even the people who have done this horrible shit to me, to suffer through it. Right? We should be aware of what they've done, and ideally they should take some responsibility and apologize and modify their behavior moving forwards, but that's on them. But a lot of them are unwell in the same or similar sorts of ways to the way that I am, and this is basically all I can do now. So I'm acutely aware of how fragile, how precarious a lot of these people's position is likely to be, given various mental, physical, and other issues. So I don't actually want you necessarily to boycott them. That's down to you and your own conscience. I don't want you to bully or harass them. I don't want you to whisper about them. I don't want you to do what they did. I just want us all to be aware of this, and for people to stop being nasty and censorious to people like me. Is that stupid or weak or overly idealistic? Probably, but that's me. The inscrutable one, who is actually a fairly famous game designer, said, "Well done and very brave, Jim, being so on top of all this. Truly shocking stuff, though I've pretty much known about much of it, yet clearly not all, but kept quiet because of the strange and incredible power they have to shout down and cancel anyone who called them out. Many of us spoke about this in private, but the brutal truth was/is that if you had a Kickstarter come up, they could, and probably still can, destroy it and your career by using their collective power and grip on the fandom. The truth probably is that they likely still have this power to one degree or another, so don't expect anyone else to speak up. Tall heads get chopped." Yeah, you're right in every detail of that. Unfortunately, that was certainly my experience behind the stage, so to say. You know, like, oh, well, I don't have any problem with you, but if I'm seen on the same billing as you, you know, they're going to come after me, they're going to cause me problems, so I can't. Yeah, and I hate that. I wish people were a bit more idealistic, braver, but at the same time, intellectually, I understand it. Oh, hang on, I need to scroll down. I lost my mouse pointer. This is the problem with multiple screens. Right, Hey Beavis says, "If you're truly an old school leftist, like you claim you are, dead naming someone shouldn't bother you, because most old school leftists are gender critical. In other words, they think gender ideology and all this trans nonsense promotes gender stereotypes, something the right wing also supports. Just saying." Well, I'm on the small L libertarian left, right, and I'm against identity politics. So to me, it's more that this stuff is irrelevant. Who are you as a person? What are your material circumstances? How can we make the material circumstances better for the largest number of people? Those sorts of things. So I've got you saying this, and I've got other people on the other side saying, "Oh, dead naming people is never acceptable, no matter the reason," which seems to suggest to me that I am striking the right balance by primarily referring people to by their chosen names. After all, I go by Grimm, right? But also making people aware of their original names. Like mine is James Desborough, which I unfortunately share with a tabloid reporter who was implicated in the phone hacking scandal. But yeah, there you go. So it's just, I want to be respectful to a degree, even of people who've done horrible things, but I also want them to be unable to escape their past so easily. Again, I would refer people to the story of Dr. V and the Magic Putter, which you can find online, which is a kind of in-depth exploration of these issues and of someone who was a fraud and either intentionally or coincidentally used their transition as a way to escape some of the retribution that was due for past indiscretions, shall we say. On Castles and Communism, so quite a lot of people asked if I was going to make that as a game because it looked pretty cool. I do have an idea for a more serious game, an alternate history where communism wins, takes over the entire world. Trotsky succeeds Lenin instead of Stalin is the main point of divergence. But that's a more serious game, even though there will be guerrilla men in it. I know that sounds contradictory. So this idea of castles and communism, that was just me tossing ideas out there for a laugh, really, and using AI art to just quickly dash off some nonsense to make it more visual. So I don't know, I've got other things to do. And it won't be news by the time I would finish writing such a module, unless I did it too quick for it to be any good. So Maybe, but probably not. Anyway, 1990 says, your conclusion is pretty much exactly what I was saying to a friend earlier today. There are already 5 editions of D&D and multiple versions of most of those editions. There's already plenty of D&D. There are plenty of other great RPGs on the market with many more to come. Perhaps the inevitable end to D&D's reign is not such a bad thing for the hobby as a whole. It hasn't been in the past, so, there's that. But just worth reiterating again, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a wholesale sale of D&D to Tencent, but rather licensing out of the IP for game projects and things, which I would imagine would end up something like what happened a few years ago with Warhammer 40,000. They suddenly decided that anyone could make just about any old shit using their intellectual property, and we were flooded with apps and Steam games and things that used Warhammer 40,000. So perhaps we'll see something like that, a whole bunch of trashy cash-in games everywhere. But it seems like it's not being sold lock, stock and barrel. So people were panicking a bit. So I feel justified in zooming out and taking the broader view, talking about the cultural issues and the way in which the Chinese government sort of combines with Chinese private enterprise and mildly making fun of the people who were panicking. So yeah, I feel pretty justified now. Truffle says, I know this is petty and very minor compared to everything else going on, but can you imagine J. Scott Garabay's reaction to this? Yes, I can. But Mr. Garabay does occasionally watch my channel or listen into my videos. There are things about Scott that concern me, but there are other things I think it's a bit unfair to make fun of him over. But maybe I'll do a video on that. But I'm kind of loath to draw attention to him or contribute to turning him into a lolcow. That seems unfair and mean. And as we've covered extensively this last week, being unfair and mean is bad. Anyway, dang, as I was typing this, your recording just said, if people have a nationalistic or outraged spasm about it. Yes, so, I kind of covered that base. The censorship, seriously, after everything WotC slapped onto all their historically purchased projects and the horrors that were Spelljammer 5e and such, I mean, what else is there to lose? Everything WotC have put their product through, mangling everything people historically loved. So what? Either Tencent won't make it worse, and the production facilities in China are bigger, so be happy, you D&D loving gamers, or they'll make it worse, and who cares because it was already lost. Yeah, there was a lot of that sentiment going around as well. Oh, okay, so it'll be overtly controlled by communists instead of covertly controlled by communists was a common sentiment. Not that China is communist, and not that the pseudo-progressives are really communist either. But then I am burdened by an actual historical and political education, so most people aren't. But yeah, there is the question of how much more damage could they do, I suppose, and the potential injection of money. But the real money is to be made in computer games and lifestyle products, not in the game itself. You would only keep that going as a little sort of rump. Truffle goes on to say, Machinations of the Space Princess. OSR, yet innovative. Okay, El Maestro, hard-bitten Gumshoe Grim. Innovative, yes. Not OSR, yes. If generic systems suck so much, how is it that they suck so much, and why? And is it possible to engineer such a thing that sucks less or doesn't suck? Right. So there are two forms of generic system. There's the generic system where someone has made a successful game and then they try to apply that system to everything. So that you could look back at the D20 boom for an example of that. So a system created and engineered for dungeon crawls and so on needs heavy adaptation to work for anything else. And it doesn't really work for anything else. Anything you do with it is just kind of patching the central problem. It's a bit easier with OSR games that explore other genres because OSR systems tend to be more simplistic and more elastic. And also there is a certain amount of familiarity that can help. The other form of generic system is designed as a generic system and then applied to a whole bunch of genres after the fact. And in that case, the game isn't designed to do anything particularly well, and so everything is just kind of meh as you go through it. Is it possible to engineer a generic system that sucks less or doesn't suck? Yeah, if you can design it to be modular. That's what I attempted to do with the Express system, but I think I failed as well. But it was an heroic attempt. Just never had enough popularity for me to continue the experiment, so it never really worked. There are some generic systems that work well for some genres and don't necessarily for others, like the D6 system, as used in Star Wars, tends to be quite good for those kind of pulpy, not quite super heroic sort of games, or high fantasy, that sort of thing. Savage Worlds, for me at least, worked great for the kind of pulpy Western stuff, but doesn't work as a generic system. Your mileage may vary. Lastly, I did get some crazy people abusing me on the Kalergi video, but it was nothing new, nothing particularly noteworthy. However, on another video I did about the Jewish porn conspiracy theories, Beardsman says pornography destroys the grey matter. It doesn't. In the brain and creates immoral behaviour. It doesn't. If anything, it correlates with less immoral behaviour. It wrecks relationships. It doesn't wreck relationships. Secrecy wrecks relationships. Pornography can help them. And degrades society. It doesn't. Wonder why 95% of pornography producers are Jewish? They're not. This isn't a thing against those people. That would be a liberal attack. Go straight to race baiting. And yeah, he goes on to say, there's a reason Jews are kicked out of several countries. Yeah, racists. Weak argument. So, yeah, nonsense from the front to the back, from nose to tail. That comment was absolute bollocks. Take her easy. Zang. My own dungeon with blackjack and hookers. A very simple and brutal print and fold pocket RPG for killing things, taking their stuff, engaging with nonsense, and spending your ill-gotten gains on ale and whores. No copyright or anything. Hack, share, upload. Just link back to me as a courtesy. Available at all the usual places.
And this is not a time to be dismayed. This is punk rock time. This is what Joe Strummer trained you for. It is now time to go. You're a good person. That means more now than ever.